Welcome, everyone. This is episode 2 of Dealing with Grief and Loss, coming all the way from Family Health, Life Skills, and Career Development. Today, it's me once more, your coach, Collins Bolo, all the way from Mombasa, Kenya. Now, so many things happen in our lives. There are a lot of events which happen in our lives. Some are for excitement, some unfortunately saddens when they occur. But after all is said and done, what is our role in dealing with grief and loss? Now, this is especially very key for me. While at this time and this season, I've come up with this topic because of the state of our nation. As the country is appreciating the coming of the new president-elect, who in the next few days is going to become officially a new president of the Republic of Kenya, our due diligence requires that we cooperate, work together for the good of all. However, when most of the time in our community, because leadership is so much tribal oriented, our leaders we choose are based on a tribe but not issue related. The impact which gets to people whom their chosen leader did not get the privilege to be what they wanted becomes and brings a massive negative impact. And that's why in episode 2, my goal and intention is to help you to understand, might it be possible right now, emotionally, you are undergoing some grief-related experiences and you might not be aware. This is important because once grief gets into a person without being resolved, it becomes cumulative and cumulatively negative. My viewer from any part of the world where you can listen to me today, I'd like us to work together, get to understand some of these concepts. For the sake of those who are not with us during the first episode, today I'd like to do a recap on episode 2 so that we can be on the same page as we continue to get more information about this one minor emotion, but it is extremely devastating if you don't know how to handle and to deal with it. Now, when you talk about grief, what is grief? Last time I talked about grief. I'd like to repeat briefly. When you talk about grief, you're talking about grief is a normal and natural reaction to significant emotional loss of any kind. Grief is the normal and natural reaction to significant emotional loss of any kind. I repeat again, it's a normal and natural reaction. But this normal and natural reaction takes place because a significant emotional loss has occurred. After a lot of studies which took place and research about different types of losses which can lead to grief, it was found out that there are 43 types of losses which can lead to grief. Now, any of these loss which a person may incur, it can lead to a natural and normal reaction because a significant loss has taken place. Now, that feeling which comes at this particular point is what we call grief. Like now, in our country, Kenya, there are a group of people are celebrating because their leader, whom they chose, has been declared to become the president-elect. But there are others who expected their choice to be the one who will get into power. But it has not worked. High chances majority of these people are right now experiencing a normal and natural reaction because of a significant emotional loss due to to the loss of their option leader, as far as our country is concerned. So that feeling is what I call grief. Again, we are saying that grief is the conflicting feelings caused by end of or change in a familiar pattern of behavior. You're saying it's the conflicting feelings. It's a conflicting feeling which is caused by end of. For example, if there's end of familiar pattern of behavior, there are several familiar patterns of behavior on how things happen around you, on how you do everything every day, or probably there's a change of familiar pattern of behavior. When this changes and the end of a familiar pattern of behavior suddenly stops or ends or comes to an end, sometime one might experience a conflicting feeling emotionally. Now that feeling is what I call grief. It's a conflicting feeling, not just it's a conflicting feeling because there's a familiar pattern of behavior which has been cut off. So it can be, for example, loss through death. And your spouse, whom every evening at 5 used to come at home, hug you, celebrate with you, is no longer there. Or you're a business pattern, you're a businessman, and we are so much used to a pattern of getting contract with a certain particular individual or company, but bam, suddenly it does not exist. Then there's that feeling which comes because of that, among many other type of losses which you can incur. Again, grief, I define as grief, is the feeling of reaching out to someone who has always been there for you, only to find when you need them, again, they are no longer there. And this happens so many times. That feeling of reaching out for someone who has always been there, only to find when you need to reach them again, they are no longer there. Now that feeling which comes at that point in time is what I call grief. The interesting part of the whole matter is this: grief is normal, grief is natural. Apart from that, it is not pathological condition or personality disorder, as many therapists have done this mistake in the past, whereby someone is undergoing grief after probably the death of a partner, a loss of a job, loss of status, probably change of environment. And when this person is undergoing grief, the griever is put under a lot of psychiatric, psychological therapy while he needs grief recovery therapy. As we'll be moving on, you'll see the impact of the same. Now, we made sure, and I made sure that our definition was clear, so that as we move on from here, we can see, we can connect our feeling of grief with different type of losses which might have incurred in our life in the past. So this became very key in our episode 1, and I wanted it to be a key again in our introduction of today, so that as we move on, we can all celebrate this information in the best way possible. We learned also people respond differently when they're in grief. Some have reduced concentration, some get to a sense of numbness, some get disrupted sleeping patterns, some change of eating habit, some get to a cluster of emotional energy. All these details get to our YouTube channel, Family Health, Life Skills and Career Development, or Rebuilding Family Foundation channel. Then you'll get the details of all these responses which are related to grief, in case someone gets a loss. Also, there are a number of considerations which we are to check, which includes that we are over 43 losses that are considered as grief. Over 43 losses which are considered as grief, after research was done for a number of years. And some included probably you can get into grief because of loss through death, divorce, retirement, moving to a new location, can be pet loss, financial change in your life, whether it has increased or decreased, can be issue to do with the loss of health, legal related problems. You can probably you're at the empty nest stage in your human development, or end of addiction for those who are addicted, or even starting a new school. These are part or different type of losses which can lead to grief. But there are some which are intangible. For example, like loss of trust. There's this boss, there's this leader who trusted you so much, but something has just happened and there is a loss of trust. It can lead to grief, loss of safety, loss of control, loss of faith, loss of productivity within our working environment. All this, when they do happen, you can find yourself in grief. But the other question we asked ourselves in the last episode is this: when loss takes place, do people have the same experience as far as grief is concerned? And one of the things we found out, which it was important to put to note, is that grief is individual and unique. Grief is very individual and unique. There's nothing like the fact that both of us, our fathers have died, we will grieve, we will experience the same emotional, we have the same emotional experience as far as grief is concerned. It's very individual, it's very unique. Not only that, also we learned that there's nothing like stages in grief. This is a misconception and misinformation which has been pushed and taken to most of our institutions of learning, because Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who came up with stages, different stages on death and the dying. Some people took those stages of death and the dying and they had to bring it also on grief. These are two different occurrences. These are two different experiences, and they should not be. Why? There's nothing like stages in grief. It's a misconception which has been used for quite a long time within our institutions of learning, and even grievers have been taken through a lot of stages which don't work. And as you'll be continue joining us in our episodes, you'll learn why this is very key and this is extremely very important. What do I mean? This is a common misinformation which has caused and hurt many grievers throughout years, because they've been taken from one stage to another which does not exist. Now, because of that, sadly, if you misdiagnose a griever, then finally you'll mistreat the same griever. Now, this mislabel of grievers in a manner which is not appropriate has had brought even more losses on the grievers than them recovering from their condition. We mentioned this in our last episode so much. But today, we are starting from this point. How do I know that if I or someone I know is incomplete with a loss? How do I know if I or someone I know is incomplete with a loss? That's very important, because it's important to know, because self-awareness is very key. The more you're aware about your personal experiences, then to be easy for you to be able to also notice the same in someone next to you. Now, like now we had an election, it is over, everybody is focusing about how he can develop himself. In context to a situation in Kenya today, how will you know that the current election has negatively impacted you to the point of you undergoing grief and you need to deal with it? Now, if you are unwilling to think about or talk about the current political situation, or express feelings about the loss of your political aspirant, high chances you might be in grief. If you're unwilling to think about, please don't talk to me about it. Don't talk to me about the new elect president. Don't talk to me about whatever is happening in Kenya. you're avoiding to watch news, you're avoiding to watch all the current political situation, or expressing the feeling about loss in your political aspirant. You're so hurt, you're so sad, you're so angry because of that. You might be in grief. It's important to understand what's happening from within you. If fond memories of this election or past elections turns painful when you think about it, you may be experiencing unresolved grief. Keyword is here, unresolved grief. And we'll be teaching you now to resolve your grief. Very key and very important. Again, if you want to talk only about the positive aspects of this past election, you may be incomplete as far as your grief is concerned. In the other episode, we talked about what it means to be incomplete. However, if you want to talk only about the positive aspect, the other negative, when people talk about probability of rigging, don't talk about that, we have just won. When people talk about other negative issues about the whole process, you are just mad. What you want is the end justifies the means. High chances you might be in a state of incomplete as far as grief is concerned. That's very important to notice. How do I know if I or someone else I know is incomplete with a loss? If you find yourself wanting to talk about only the negative aspect of the election, it might be unresolved grief. The only thing you want to talk about is the negative about the everything. There's no election which is perfect because it's conducted by imperfect people who establish imperfect systems. But if that's where you only find yourself putting your energy, high chances you might be having unresolved grief. Keyword is unresolved grief, which we'll be addressing in other episodes coming in. Again, you need to be aware about this. Unresolved grief may be at the root of any fear associated with thoughts or feelings about our election and relationships as citizens. Unresolved grief may be at the root of any fear associated with thoughts or feelings about our election and relationships as citizens. Now, this is very key because there are people who are relocated from their homes because the first time the president-elect was announced, there's a lot of tension in some area. People are not sure that there'll be violence or no. Even foreigners in different areas were being told to relocate because of this fear. And the fear is because of unresolved grief, because of the events which had happened in the past. These are just few among many symptoms which can help us to know exactly the occurrences and issues which are happening within ourselves. However, do grief have massive impact in our society? Because it's extremely important for us to understand the impact of unresolved grief in our society, so that even as we move forward in one way or the other, we can get to the point whereby we are willing, very much willing, to address unresolved grief in our society. Thank you once more for joining us in episode 2. In episode 3, I'll talk about the impact of unresolved grief in a society. In our 3rd episode, I'll be talking about the impact of unresolved grief in a society. Don't miss it. Make sure you'll be right there so that you can add knowledge to yourself, wisdom to yourself, and self-awareness to yourself. This is Family Health, Life Skills and Career Development, Rebuilding Family Foundation chapter. God bless you very much. Have a nice time. Let's connect in our third episode. I hope this session has really helped you to continue connecting with our program and also getting to understand more. We are planning soon, in the next 1 month. After 1 month, we'll be having a program whereby we'll be training so many people to understand dynamics of grief so that they can deal with a lot of issues in their life. Grief is very cumulative and cumulatively negative. That one means some of the losses you have been incurring from probably during your childhood, during your young life, during your midlife, even probably at your adult life, which are unresolved, might be some of the things making you not to progress in life. Totally not progress in life, because unresolved grief are extremely potential to make a very highly educated individual not to progress in life, but hover around each and everything in his or her life. Unresolved grief have potential to cause death, emotional problem, psychological, and finally, very aggressive lifestyle-related disease. And that's why it will be extremely important as I give you these nuggets on grief recovery. Then you shall join us to the end, especially when we are going to start this special class and we take you through the process of grief and loss. And by the end of the day, you overcome all your unresolved emotional feeling of grief. My phone number is right there. You can see it. And my email address of Family Health. In case you have any question, you have every need, kindly just post it there. And then I will personally connect with you and we can see how you can help you as an individual, as a family, as an entity, as an institution. Thank you once more and welcome.